Now, Carolyn, I've heard you say that all of us are always receiving guidance,
Mm.
but that the reason we don't listen to guidance, at least one of the reasons, is that we can't handle the speed of change and how much we would have to change if we followed the guidance we're receiving. So I want to hear more about that, and especially in light of things seeming to be changing in such an accelerated way right now. And, I'm getting guidance. Oh my God, more change? Really?
Right, right. Well, first of all, let's go back to the building and realize that every floor has its own quality of guidance. So, not you don't get revelatory guidance until you are up on a higher floor in yourself. On the first floor, you're going to get survival guidance that you don't even have to think about. Like you're at a restaurant and you think maybe I shouldn't eat this. I don't know. Basic survival guidance, but that's it is as authentic a form of guidance as is revelatory. Remember that the way heaven works, the way guidance works, the way the invisible sacred system works is that everything is always about supporting your life force, supporting you, keeping you balanced, keeping you going. It's always about that. It is not, the value is always about the support of the whole of your life, which is why the life map that your guides have is far more inclusive than anything you can see, right? It's far more inclusive. So survival guidance is just basic. Don't walk on this bridge. Maybe I shouldn't drive down this street. It doesn't even require a prayer or a thought. You just respond automatically. But eventually, as you go up in yourself, you reach a place where you become curious about whether there is a higher order of life that you belong to, whether there is a purpose that you have, whether God knows you by name, whether there is this kind of greater map for your life. So that's when you start to ask questions like, what should I do here? That's when you start experiencing conflicts that are far greater than whether or not you should buy this car or do you have the money for this. Your conflicts become more about purpose, meaning, direction, the quality of choices you're making in terms of other human beings, in terms of who you are, in terms of how people are affected by you. And it's at that point that your intuitive system, how do I say this? All along, your intuitive system's been developing, but as you develop and ask more refined questions, it requires a more refined inner system. And so that next stage of guidance and intuition is very dependent upon how successfully, how is that the right word we want, how you develop self-esteem, how you come to respect yourself, how you come to rely upon yourself, how you come to trust yourself, how you come to have faith in yourself. So somewhere in this ascension is this crossroads of faith and trust that higher guidance relies upon. Survival guidance does not. But higher guidance requires grace, requires tools that you have inside of yourself that you need to activate, like faith and trust. And as I say to people, you really have to earn these tools. You have to, this is how self-esteem, faith, trust works. And what I tell people is that it's very difficult to trust and have faith in a sacred universe that is populated with saints and angels and the divine when you don't even have faith in yourself, when you don't even have faith in your own word. And so, what I tell people as part of an exercise on the lower level is to start developing faith in yourself. Never mind God, never mind any of that. You're going to start by giving your word to yourself over something your intuitive system is directing you to do. Because your intuitive system will always give you directions about your survival. Don't eat this, do this, get up and walk. Basic stuff. This is basic how organic divinity works. It talks through your cell tissue. It talks through your stomach. It talks through your irritations. It says, I've got to start walking. So you decide, that's it. I'm going to walk. You make a promise to yourself. I'm going to walk 2 blocks a day. And you start out small. But what's really going on, if you could see at a bigger level, is that you are now engaging in building a bridge of faith in yourself and in the power of your own word. So you've given yourself instructions. You're going to walk every two blocks a day. You're going to walk like that for a week. So you actually do it, and you're going to face the saboteur, and you're going to tell yourself you don't want to. You're going to tell yourself you're going to start tomorrow. But you get through all that, and you force yourself to walk, only to discover at the end of a week, you're probably going to still walk. You're probably going to do that for another week, and maybe you'll add a block, and pretty soon, even though you're not conscious of it, you've developed a level of respect for yourself that you didn't have before. You've taken charge of a part of your power, and from there, you start building and think, you know what? Maybe I'm going to walk 6 blocks every day. I can do it. I believe in myself. I can do it now. And as you start building that faith, there'll come a place where you're going to get a gut hit inside, a kind of intuitive flutter that you've heard it before only, and you felt it before, only this time you have the courage to actually listen to it, because you have enough faith in yourself to realize I need to, you have enough strength and enough faith to listen to your intuitive system, knowing that, maybe not knowing, but what you're born knowing, that the more you learn to rely on your inner, the more you are withdrawing from your 5 sensory world and into the world of energetic intelligence and energetic guidance. And pretty soon, you might advance to prayer, in which case you're asking for grace to consciously direct you. That's how it works.
Friends, you can write your questions in or actually use the hand raiser function, and we'll call in a couple of people. I have one more question for you, Carolyn, before we do that, which is, we recorded this series called The Great Transformation. It's a gorgeous series where you go into quite a lot of detail about what you call these inner awakenings that are taking us out of an old world and into this new multisensory way of being. And I said, Carolyn, teach a practice. Let's guide people through something that we can do together, step by step. And you're like, okay, I'll do it. And then when you started and you led the practice, you said, Tami, this is not going to be a guided meditation. And I was like, I had a feeling it wasn't going to be a guided meditation. And you taught us the practice of empowering other people.
What?
And you were like, this is the practice we need, the practice of empowering other people. So I wonder if you can say a little bit about that and why you think
Doors open.
that
I didn't want to
is.
start. Like I said,
Friend, if you can
I'm
mute
here, I don't want
yourself
to start.
there. Hello? Thank you. Why the practice of empowering others is such an important practice at this time.
Well, I'm going to go back to the building and say, on every floor in yourself, there's an obstacle course to get to the next floor, to get to the next level of yourself. of your own power. And one of the inevitable tests that face every person is the challenge of, as you become intuitive, early on you think it's all about you, but in fact your intuitive skill is the greatest tool you have to be of service to other people, to sense what another person needs, to see what you can do to help, or what needs to be said to heal something. And what is true is that people are terrified of empowering other people. They're terrified of it, Tami. They're terrified of giving compliments, or they're afraid other people will get more than them, or have more than them, or get to the finish line before them. But they're just terrified of doing that. There won't be enough for them if or giving attention to someone, or letting someone else have attention when it's their moment, right? And this challenge of what it takes to actually become a source of power for other people is another way to understand life, is that life is just this. It is the journey from going, and our struggles of our love of power, to discovering the power of love. And I don't mean the power of love in our personal life. I mean the power of that is love, and what it is to simply be of service to others through love, through an act of love, through, as I would say to people, shine your light upon them, channel your grace to that person, be of service that way, send prayers to them, and wish them the best, send them light. And instead of judging another person, hold back and send them light, and say they don't need my judgment, they need my light. Shine your light upon them, and spend time like praying for others you will never ever meet, like all the people suffering in Gaza, and all the people suffering in Russia, and all the people suffering in Ukraine. Spend time shining light upon them. And because this whole that the collective is generating, and all the pain that human beings are feeling, and all of the psychic trauma, it's in our atmosphere as well. And so if you can counteract that by shining light upon it and just saying, I'm going to sit in prayer and just pour it into the collective, just pour it into, think of it as offsetting the negativity and the psychic free radicals. And you also are playing by high cosmic rules. Now let's go to the 12th floor. The high cosmic rules, it says, what is in one is in the whole. What I do to one is done. What is done to one is done to me. So in some far reaches of the world where people are suffering, that suffering is also going into my life in some way. So
What about when a moment happens? I'm curious, when you hear something and somebody's actually having a hard time, and you have this moment of, they call Schadenfreude, where you actually take some kind of weird pleasure that somebody is going through a hard time. Maybe someone you know, someone you're competitive with, envious of, something like that. Is there something you can do right in that moment to interrupt that?
yeah, I first of all, you have to actually own that that's how you're feeling. You know, that you have to actually say, I am really feeling vengeful, or I'm really taking joy in another person's suffering. And what I would tell you to do immediately is to see yourself as that person. Become that person instant. Just say, oh, you know what, God, let me just imagine myself as that person. And in some way, shape, or form, um, I think we don't understand so much about why others do what they do. And we don't understand why we do what we do. But one of the things you can understand is why you suffer. And envy is a suffering thing. The desire for vengeance is suffering. So what I would tell people is whether I don't care who you're looking at, what you are experiencing is a dark emotion in you that was there long before you encountered that person. But maybe knowing that person has brought this out in you, which is the reason why you probably met. And so if it's possible for a person to get impersonal about themselves and realize, look at this way I'm feeling. The way I'm feeling is awful. This is not good to feel this way about anybody. I wouldn't want anyone absolutely delighting that my life was falling apart. That's how you have to work it through, I think.
All right. This month at Sounds True 1, Guidance and Grace in the Face of Adversity. And I wonder if you would be willing, Caroline, to share something you learned from facing adversity. Like, oh, here's the lesson that I got. Here's how it changed me and helped me evolve up to a different level of the building.
Mm. Well, I can talk about the impact of judging others and anger and self-righteousness because it almost did kill me. Okay. And I bled to death. I had a hemorrhage through my nose because I was so absolutely unforgiving and angry. One of the reasons I teach forgiveness is because of this experience. And I was so angry and so that, I had had a nasal surgery. And when I came back to the farm in New Hampshire, I was still raging about this particular situation. I felt like I was right and they were wrong. And I was this, and I blew a blood vent and I started with a nosebleed. And the nosebleed eventually, I could feel blood clots going down my throat. And I eventually started vomiting this blood. And my neighbors who I called, I said, I've got this nosebleed. I ended up calling an ambulance and I went to the hospital in Keene, New Hampshire. And I'd lost so much blood, that I had to have blood transfusions the next day. And the doctor came in and he said, listen, I have to give you this blood because if you start bleeding again, we are going to lose you. You've lost that much blood. So the people that I was angry with were the people that I had started the publishing company with. And it was obviously getting time for me to leave that, and I didn't want to, and I didn't like it. It was just too much to, none of it which matters now. But from an archetypal point of view, I saw them as family. So they weren't literally blood family, but they were archetypally family. So it was in my blood. And after I got blood transfusions, the most remarkable thing happened for me. And that's that I felt like I was going like this, coming back to life because I had blood, I was getting blood in my body. But the most remarkable thing was I could remember everything I was angry about, but not one bit of anger was left. I could remember all the facts, but I had no emotion. It was as if the universe had purged me in a way I was incapable of doing by myself. That my anger, I had become so toxic and so poisonous that I literally blew it. So when this blood came in that didn't have any of my memories in it, I thought, look at this. I absolutely don't feel a thing anymore. And it was at that point that I realized how toxic self-righteous anger was, how I truly made, right there in the hospital, made a new contract with myself that I would never, ever, ever allow myself to cross that line again, that I would, in fact, practice forgiveness because, and it was like it was a complete transformation. But that's what it took.
Thank you for sharing that. All right, we have two questions which we'll end with. The first came in from Susan, who said, can you please talk about the loneliness we can experience as we change and, in your building analogy, move to higher floors?
Well, that's a lovely question because you do experience loneliness if you look for other people to approve of your journey. If you're looking for that type of support, you will experience a kind of a loneliness because you think that somehow or other your inner life is a group activity, but it's not. It's not. The more you, I don't like things like the more or less, that what happens is as you pursue this deeper part of yourself, you don't get, but you have to trust me on this. You're changing the entire fabric of your life in ways you can't imagine. You are opening yourself to different relationships that you can't imagine because you can't meet them now. But as you become more empowered, they start to come into your life. So you might not be as lonely as you imagine.
And then our final question, this comes from Eric, who has written in, Carolyn, could you give us a prayer for the great transformation for these times right now? I'm not a big meditator, but I adore your Intimate Conversations book so much. Thank you.
Well, Eric, I'm not a meditator either, but I pray a lot. And so one of the kinds of prayers I say goes something like this, because I ad lib always, but this is very typical. I'll say, Lord, I'm having trouble with the things that are happening in the world today, but this is also your world. It is not mine. And so help me not to fall into any of the toxicity, any of the judgment. Rather, this world is in your hands, and so am I. And so help me to be an instrument of grace, an instrument of compassion. Just let me, because you put me here now. And so that wasn't a mistake. So I'm supposed to be here, and I will not be overwhelmed by the challenges I see in front of me. I rely upon your grace.
Caroline Myss, thank you so much for bringing channeling grace, upgrading us, helping us here on Sounds True One. Thank you so much.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed it. I hope I made sense to people.
A whole lot of sense.
I want to thank everyone for listening. And honestly, I have to tell you, prayer is power, everybody. Never underestimate it. Never, 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 never.
Thanks,
Hey,
everyone.
go
Thanks
cook
for
a
being
great
with us. All right. Thank you, Caroline. Thank
Bye,
you. Much
everybody.
love. Much love. Thanks, everyone.